Good evening, my dear friends. I welcome you all to the Hindu and the Businessline editorial analysis on August 25, 2022. Let us see what is in store for today. First, I will start from the business line. The business line the editorial discusses about the digital rupee challenge. We are all familiar with the UPI transactions, the Google Pay, the Paytm, and all sorts of UPI transactions, which there is an intermediary. The intermediary is the UPI interface, is providing the interface between the payee bank and the paying bank. So we are very much familiar with the UPI transactions. Now the Reserve Bank of India is thinking of Reserve Bank of India is one of the front runners, means is one of the central banks is thinking of central bank digital currency. What is this central bank digital currency all about here? Central bank digital currency is the sovereign currency issued by the Reserve Bank of India. We are all using the cash that is in paper form. So the cash is exchanged for transactions, for trading purposes, and all sorts of transactions. The cash is the connection of the holder of the currency to the cash in paper form is the connection of the person who is holding the currency to the Reserve Bank of India. In the digital currency system, that is central bank digital currency, which is the e form of the printed currency which we are holding. Come again, this is the printed form, that is this is the digital form of the printed hard cash which we are holding now, the liquid cash which we are holding now. So the Reserve Bank of India is thinking of, among several central banks all over the world, is thinking of introducing a central bank digital currency, that is the digital equivalent of the paper cash which we are holding now. However, the business line editorial is telling that a very steady and calibrated approach should be followed in issuing this digital currency. What is this calibrated approach? The consequences of the introducing of the digital currency has to be seen first. Hence, it has to be introduced in the wholesale segment first. Wholesale segment means interbank transactions, that is the transactions between one bank to another, and cross country, cross border transactions, that is from one country's bank to another. Reserve Bank of India in this case, what it will be doing is that it will debit the bank which is having obligations to the other bank, and the credit should be given to the bank which is claiming the currency, that is claiming the amount. There is one problem with regard to the digital currency. What is the problem with regard to the digital currency? Whatever cash we are holding it as anonymous. For example, Mr. A is holding 100 rupees or 500 rupees or 2000 rupees. No one knows that Mr. A is so and so, that is Mr. A is holding this currency. And if he transfers it to Mr. B, only the transfer happens and there is no trail, that is the digital trail, that is record of the transfer. Just handing over by hand from one person to another, that is Mr. A to B, is happening. That is Mr. A is transferring 500 rupees to Mr. B. No one comes to know because there is no digital trail or the electronic evidence of transfer of money from rupees 500 from Mr. A to Mr. B. However, it must be seen that this anonymity, that is without anyone knowing who is transferring money to another and who is holding this currency, it has to be seen whether this anonymity is ensured in the digital currency which central bank is going to issue. Therefore, the consequences. Then another problem which creeps up if we ensure the anonymity is that the money laundering which is the very great enemy to our country's economic system will be affected, because if you provide anonymity, because if you are holding digital currency and no one comes to know who transfers the currency from one person to another, this anonymity will be enjoyed by those who are holding it for money laundering purposes. So these things have to be taken into account. Then while transferring from the savings and current bank accounts to the digital currency bank account, it has to be seen that which kind of consequences arise. So all these consequences have to be kept in mind before introducing this digital currency. China, Uruguay, and the Caribbean central bank system has already thought of it, and Bahama is the first country to introduce this digital currency. Mind you, Bahama has already introduced this central bank digital currency. Bahama comes within the Caribbean central bank system. So we have to look at Bahama, how this currency is performing, this digital currency is performing in Bahamas. So Canada wanted to introduce it first, but Canada has withdrawn from the obligation to or the promise to introduce this digital currency. So why world economies all over are hesitating to introduce this currency, digital currency, has to be weighed in. There are lots of advantages for issuing this digital currency. The first advantage is that the paper currency, if it is stopped, the cost of printing and the number of what you call plants, tree cutting for all these paper purposes will be reduced, and the cost of printing, it's a huge cost involved in printing this currency, it will be reduced. And the disadvantage is that, as I have already listed out certain disadvantages, among them main disadvantage will be if it is through the electronic means, it is very dangerous, because cyber threats are a thing to be counted on. So let us hope Reserve Bank of India would take into account all the observations made now before thinking about issuing this central bank digital currency. The digital currency, no doubt, is the future of money. Therefore, we have to attune to the thought of issuing this digital currency and living with the digital currency era. Then, from the Hindu, there is an article, that is editorial, making it simple. That is, the title of the editorial is Making It Simple. What is this? The elections are always fraught with lots of risk. One such risk is that a person voting for number of times, which is always happening. So what has to be done is that recently, some months before, the Election Laws Amendment Act 2022 was brought in. 2021 was brought in. What was the purpose of this laws? The purpose of this amendment laws was to link the voters ID with the Aadhaar. In India, during the elections, many people are newly joining as the voter. So some people who are dead, they are being deleted from the electoral rolls. So linking with the Aadhaar, government thinks will ensure that a free and fair elections are conducted, and this will ensure that double voting or multiple times of voting never takes place. However, in the recent elections held in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, it has been seen that this has become a very great problem. the linking of Aadhaar with the voters ID has become a greater problem. How it has affected the Andhra and the Telangana elections, it has happened that several people who are eligible to vote got deleted. It has to be remembered that Aadhaar is not a proof of citizenship. It is the proof of identity. That is, a person who is staying in India will have an Aadhaar card. It is not the proof of citizenship. Therefore, the linking of the voters ID will affect certain constitutional laws or constitutional um, nitty-gritties also, because you have to be a citizen of India to vote in the elections. However, this linking process will create matters complicated. So, the election system in India is appreciated all over the world, and the strategists and analysts are always appreciating this election process. Such things should not be made into this election system in India, which will further complicate the matters. Already, the voters' ID is the one, all encompassing one, which is providing many address proofs and identity proofs to several of the institutions and several of the facilities the government is offering. Aadhaar is also having its own advantages because the direct benefit transfers are happening through the Aadhaar, and this has become a strong weapon in the hands of the government for reducing the duplication of benefits being awarded to certain persons. However, this will this Aadhaar linking with the voters ID will prove very complicated, and certain persons who are eligible for voting will face ousting from the electoral rolls. My dear friends, hope you enjoyed both the discussions of today about the digital currency and the linking of Aadhaar with the voters ID. Meet you tomorrow with some more analysis like this. Till then, take care. Goodbye. Bye.